to Paradigm Review Show, Apocalypse Now, 1979, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This is my number one PXF classic, getting us through the backlog of these shows. And of course, Gaz has his, top five. Mac has his top five. So we'll kind of be slowly working through all of our PXF classics on the backlog. So the actual anniversary of this film was the 15th. I think that might have been the 50th. I'm not even sure anymore at this point, guys, but it was definitely up there. I've got multiple versions. I have the Blu-ray full disclosure copy, so definitely some cool stuff with that. This is my kind of old version, so that alone, 3 discs in there, but just like the character art. The character art is absolutely insane. I think this is like a photo. You know how you get like production notes, guys, and just like I don't know. There's some really cool stuff in that.
I like that already. I can see the map on the inside.
Yeah, bro. So that's my Blu-ray copy.
Yeah.
So you guys know how I do there. Definitely, that's the one that I originally watched. Like I think it's called Heart. So I have the thing up here. The actual documentary is called like Heart of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. So that's, man, if you want to see the making of the most complicated film of all time, I suggest you watch that documentary. I mean, the only thing that I would even put close to it is like maybe those early Star Wars documentaries that Lucas made, and we're going to get into Lucas, so we're going to get into that as well. My newer copy would be the 4K Ultra Disc Final Cut. This is what came out not that long ago. What you get with this is you get the 2 copies of feature film, which is Final Cut and original 1979 original. Then you get the 2 Blu-ray copies. Then you get special features from Apox Now 79 original and Apocalypse Now. That looks like maybe Final Cut, but they have some small text on that. And then let's see what's under it. A Filmmaker's Apocalypse, which looks like that's just the Blu-ray. So some similar stuff. Let's get 2, 4, 6 CDs in this one. Highly recommend that. I obviously got that as soon as Final Cut came out. Interesting enough, Final Cut was in theaters when they did that last anniversary. So I also saw the Final Cut in the theater. So I've seen this movie hundreds and hundreds of times. It's going to be the focus of today's review, basically on every medium from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to 4K. So I can compare all of that for you guys. We're definitely going to be talking what up Red Cloud, what up Mosh, what up Slip, what up Fire Pixie. So we're going to be talking, every version of Apocalypse Now. What does it mean? Give our ratings at the end. I'm going to give you guys the synopsis. So obviously, a U.S. Army officer serving in Vietnam is tasked with assassinating a renegade special forces colonel who sees himself a god. By this point, you should know that Captain Willard, is played by Martin Sheen, main character, lead in the film. Colonel Walter E. Kurtz is the villain, anyway, the officer who has gone rogue that he's assigned to assassinate. And we'll get into good and evil, guys, and I'm sure that, we'll get into the plot elements and things of that nature. But anything you want to add, guys? Initial reactions from your recent rescreen and before I get into pre-production?
I think I'm going to behave and go through each section when we get to it. I think we have to do, because it's just so complicated and there's so much involved. I mean, I've got obviously etc. But I'm going to try and behave and go through in a coherent order for once.
Yeah, makes sense. I think if there's ever a time to do it, it's
without
a doubt on this film. But this is my favorite film of all times, guys. I'm assuming that you guys have seen it. So pre-production, right off the bat. So John Milius, who's the director of Conan the Barbarian, is a co-writer in this along with Coppola. One thing I was reading before we started, Gaz, was I did not know how involved George Lucas was with some of the early pre-production steps.
Really?
He even went out location sighting, and it was really the whole thing was, I guess Lucas was going to have Milius write it, and Lucas was to direct. He was the first pick director. Coppola was kind of like EPing, executive producing along all these steps, and then ultimately Lucas becomes unavailable due to American Graffiti and Star Wars, and then I think that's when Coppola kind of stepped back in. Heart of Darkness is absolutely amazing. So I guess since you brought that up, I can get into a little bit of that. So Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Apparently John Milius wanted to adapt that, it's a 19th century novella that takes place in the Congo, basically about colonization. Similar thing, Colonel Kurtz and all that stuff, going up a river. All those themes come from Heart of Darkness. But Milius wanted to do a Vietnam version of that. So this is really a Vietnam adaptation of Heart of Darkness with the Vietnam backdrop. Milius wanted to go to Nam, and he got turned away for having asthma. There's just, what he used and what he didn't use. And I think there's a big, I think it really works well. The material works as good in a Vietnam backdrop. Orson Welles had actually tried to adapt Heart of Darkness back in the day, the creator of Citizen Kane. And that they had concept art and all that stuff, guys, but it all amounted to nowhere because the budget would always balloon, and then it would just production hell, and it would just tank the production. So when they came into Apocalypse Now, everybody knew that, and it's just kind of interesting how the curse ultimately gets passed over to the Apocalypse Now production as well. It faces some of the same problems. Apocalypse Now gets made, and it gets released years later after it's shot. It's shot in 1977, but I always thought that was crazy about that curse, just that, they tried so hard to get a Heart of Darkness made back in the day, couldn't get it off the ground. And then they're like, oh, now Apocalypse Now is coming out, and it has some really deep production problems. Again, I'm not going to go into every detail of the production issues. I would say just watch the documentary for that, and they'll give you a really detailed account of it, But I will go into like a little bit of them. So a lot of people don't know when this film started. I know you know who this actor is, guys. I'm sure we're all big fans of him. Harvey Keitel is actually the lead to play Willard. He actually makes it to photography. And then I don't know if he wasn't getting along with Coppola, or it wasn't working out for what they wanted for the character, basically, is what I gleaned from it. Harvey Keitel is replaced within weeks of filming, and Martin Sheen is brought in. So I don't know if that would change anything for you guys, but let me just ask you, what did you think of the Sheen performance before we get into the plot?
That's actually going to be one of my highlights in the movie. I pretty much, when we get to the end of it, I'm approaching this how I did Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm going to talk about the filmmaking, obviously, perspective, and then I'll come with my personal opinion later, which is very different, and I'll probably upset most of the people here. But no, it didn't for me. But Martin Sheen, definitely one of the standouts in the entire film, apart from Robert Duvall as well, who I feel is being overlooked.
Well, Duvall at the time was nominated for Best Supporting Actor Oscar. So.
Right. Oh well, so he wasn't overlooked then.
I mean, not back then. Not back then.
Yeah.
I could see people. I mean, this is way past 1979, so I could see people overlooking him now. But it was pretty. It was pretty notable in the time. Of course, Robert Duvall is a repeat actor of the Godfather trilogy. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not a big Born on the 4th of July guy. That is a little bit too slow for my pace. You can see if I'm Apocalypse Now head, I wouldn't be. I'm all for those veteran kind of movies. They're interesting, but I think between like the PTSD movie, I would say it's without a doubt Apocalypse Now and Rambo. I don't think anything comes close to covering, wartime PTSD the way these do. But anyway, I'll do a couple quick more. So Harvey Keitel, who I love the guy, I was always interested to see those Harvey Keitel film reels, guys, just to see how he did playing Willard. Like, I wonder how that would have changed the Willard performance. I can't help but wonder that when we're told like he came to set and then they fired him and replaced him with Charlie Sheen's dad. It's like crazy thing, but I'll move on. Those massive set pieces, we'll cover this in the plot elements of Act 3, but the temple, Kurtz's temple, I think they were trying to shoot the film in 5 or 6 months. It ends up going over a year. Coppola had hundreds and hundreds of feet of film. That's why he has like, a final cut, a 3-hour final cut. And I'm sure some of that grinded guys' gears because this guy had literally thousands of hours of footage of this film. You know what I mean? Of just like probably most of which didn't get used. You know what I mean? So
that's it. You've got it already, because when we were talking before we started the review, and I was saying, "Oh, I'm going to be opposite ends to you, man." You've got it in one. You've got it in one where I'm coming from. That's pretty much it. Yeah, you know me too well, man.
All aspects when I have like 20 discs of one film with the documentaries. But the other thing I would say for other people, like just because we're reviewing the final cut, preferring the final cut, I would still say for you guys, pick what version you like best, because it might not be. Gaz might like a shorter version than what I like, Some of you guys might prefer Redux, DVD. Some of you, much like what we said with Blade Runner. There's 4 or 5 versions of Blade Runner. There's at least 3 versions of Apocalypse Now, at least. So maybe if you're just like, hey, the 3-hour cut's not for me, I totally get that, guys. Like it's not some mystery. You know what I mean? So I would say that to the audience as well. Watch different versions. Maybe you find one that you prefer more than others. Those set pieces got completely destroyed by storms when they were filming in the Philippines. So they had that entire Kurtz temple built, and it got completely destroyed and had to rebuild it. I don't know if that came out of the studio budget or what. I don't know the exact numbers on that. I know it wasn't a good thing. And then the final pre-production fact I'll give you guys, the Gaz's favorite character, Captain Kilgore of the cavalry. Those choppers they were flying were real Philippines military choppers. And those dudes actually got in combat. They were going from combat situations back to the set of Apocalypse Now. So Coppola would work with them. They would shoot his chopper scenes. And then like those actual pilots would be like, oh, we got a skirmish. They would go into real-time combat and then come back to Apocalypse Now and finish filming with Coppola. I don't know of any other movie where military dudes were going in and out of, essentially live combat during film production. That's just it. If you want to get an idea of how close the Apocalypse Now set was to real combat, it was probably closer than most of you think. So, I don't know. The way it sets off is basically a PTSD montage of Willard and his hotel room in the Vietnam City. He's essentially enlisted, but he's wasted. He's been drinking all night for days. Basically just talking about how life went back home in the States and not being able to assimilate back into society after facing, facing the war conflict on the daily. So essentially what he's saying, Gaz, is he expects to either be kicked out or desert. Like he's not really has a clear path. As he wakes up the next morning, he gets an assignment from essentially high command. It's essentially the military in conjunction with intelligence, the Central Intelligence Agency, and like when he shows up, he asks him, "What are the charges?" You know what I mean? Because he's been wasted so long, he thought he got kicked out, and they're like, "There's no charges, sir." They're like, "It's a direct mission from like high command." So that ensues the meeting. Ensemble cast, which is Harrison Ford's cameo. I'm sure Gaz didn't miss him. It's extremely young Harrison Ford, but nonetheless an ensemble cast cameo with the rest of the officers. I actually like that scene a lot, Gaz. I don't know what you thought of it when they were giving him the mission.
It was. It didn't grab me either way. I mean, it's a good scene, but I just thought it was pretty standard stuff, really.
Yeah, just kind of a military, assigning a mission scene. Nothing special about it. But I like the way they acted. So essentially, I'll break it down for you guys. They pulled him because of his resume, which is highly decorated Black Ops. And they're asking him, it's Ford is interviewing him, Did you do this mission? No. Did you do this mission? No. Like, that's the answer he's supposed to give to, intelligence officers. Oh yeah, I assassinated this leader and that leader. Like, you don't walk in there and say that. So he's specifically picked because of his confidentiality. And then, are you a essentially leveraged intelligent asset in the field? Ultimately, his answer to that is no as well. So they sit him down at the table and give him the dossiers. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of passed every hurdle, which is like, you don't go in there saying like, I did this and I did that, because if you come in there bragging, like, we can't trust this guy. You're going to go tell everybody you killed Kurtz. For those who don't understand, like, American, kind of military policy, like, we essentially don't kill Americans on paper. We don't send our guys to kill our own guys. So the whole, like, yin and yang, dichotomy of this good and evil of this movie is he knows Kurtz is an American special officer. To give a little bit of background of what Willard learns about Kurtz in the dossier. Kurtz was on special Pentagon assignment. He was military dynasty from West Point, Harvard masters. He was essentially fast-tracked to general, going to be fast-tracked to general. He completely drops that and enters Green Beret Special Forces at 38 years old. And Willard was saying, like, most guys in that program are 19, 20, maybe 21, 22. So it just sets up Kurtz for an extremely durable, genius, but also, elite level special forces, crack troop. And, that ultimately Willard's like, questioning that when he gets on the boat. He said, I thought they gave me the wrong dossier. You know what I mean? Because he's expecting just some low level private that just went completely nuts and just whatever set up his own, civilization or whatever the case may be. I thought the CIA guy, they have him booked as civilian, was really good in that scene. He was like the longer haired dude, because he just like stares at him and gives one word answers. And he did like like that. Like, you got to figure that's how a guy like that, like a CIA spook, would act. So it just seemed.
Actually, you made a very good point there. I think that's generally a universal Western military concept where they won't admit officially if one of their guys has gone rogue, and we have to send someone essentially to take him out. So that was a very good point. And the way they did it as well, like, they'll give you the background as to what's happened. He's constantly reevaluating, trying to get a psychological read on the target as well. So that's interesting. And I haven't read, novel influence myself, but that did fit. That did feel almost like literally a novel on screen, that part where you're really getting the sense of the character. Someone, because obviously in a novel they've not got film, so they have to give you that psychological breakdown on why this has happened. So that is definitely one of the standouts for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then, ultimately you guys get the idea. Willard's going to get to the boat. He meets the boat crew, which consists of Lawrence Fishburne, Lance, who is a surfer, Southern California surfer. Love his character, guys. Chef Saucier from New Orleans. And who am I missing? Lawrence Fishburne, who I already said, extremely young Lawrence Fishburne. I have no idea how old he was in this movie, but he had to be like a teenager. Why did I set this? Tyrone. I don't even know. I can't even. It's unfortunately it's cut off. But you guys know what character I'm talking about. So the vast majority of this movie. Yeah, I was actually going to mention this. That's what I was thinking of when I was talking about them getting on the boat. Yeah, do you know that Hot Shots cameo, guys? I met you in Wall Street. Yeah, they were in Wall Street together. Yeah, Hot Shots is smart. So he meets the boat guys, and essentially he's reading the dossier. Not long before they meet up with the cavalry. This is Gaz's part, Robert Duvall. Sick ass actor.
I love this part. This is my favorite moment in the movie. It's probably going to surprise people with me having such eccentric humor. It's just the way Duvall's character, spoiler alert, he's got the cowboy. Well, before he even gets on the beach, there's a part where, and I thought, wow, this is an interesting parallel. There's that part in the chopper where he's like drinking coffee. There's this like carnage going on everywhere. Interesting fun fact here. In the movie Avatar, that dude who plays kind of like the Colonel military dude, he's doing a very similar thing in a chopper, drinking coffee. I think he has a line where he actually says, I want to get this wrapped up and be back for dinner or something like that. And I thought that was a real influence from Apocalypse Now.
100%.
Yeah, it's definitely taken from there. So, and I just found it like such a contrast, because then when he gets on the beach, folks, he's walking around with his cowboy hat on, takes his shirt off. You've got dudes surfing in the background while his body's going on. This guy's saying, "Oh, it's safe to surf. Yeah, you can do it." And it's like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, if I say that this beach is safe to surf, this beach is safe to surf. So his boys are surfers. Mike from San Diego, the other guy in his unit. Charlie don't surf. He sends them out in the waves, and they're like, I don't know, sir. Like, it's pretty hot. And he's like, no way. So and then what does he have, the megaphone or the walkie-talkie? He's like yelling after these. Like, he's like, nice wave, and they're yelling back to him, and you can see the bombs hitting the wave while those guys are trying to ride it.
When he gets in the that kind of trench, and I think he's talking to, I think it might be Lance, and he's got like more or less, he's getting like merchandise. Look, here's some shirts, here's some shorts. And the next scene, I mean, after that, I'm getting ahead here, but this is just so hilarious where he's flying around in the chopper up the river. Said, Lance, can I have my surfboard back?
Oh yeah, no, I'm getting to that one. Yeah, so
I love it, man. Best scene in the movie.
A couple iconic lines here. Charlie don't surf, as our boy Joey said, and then So he keeps calling in the airstrikes from the U.S. Air Force, and he's like, push that tree line back 100 yards. Give me some breathing room, and then he get. Actually, so you were watching Final Cut too, right, guys?
Yeah.
So the line is way extended in Final Cut. He gives like a whole like background of like anyway, like the famous, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory, and he talks about the chemicals and whatnot. But the second iconic line, he's like, "This war is going to end someday, or someday this war is going to end." Like the way I think that is partially the line that Duvall was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for, because that line, the way he delivers that, it makes him feel like the war is never going to end.
Yeah,
that was the point of it. Like, it's going to last forever. They're just going to keep doing that, and it's like Groundhog Day. You know, in Vietnam, they just do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very, very interesting fun fact. Slip and Red probably will be aware of this. That line, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, has been used by every extreme metal band going. I've heard it used on so many albums. Little like Hellraiser 2, the line when the doctor appears in the hospital and says, the doctor, is in the house or something like that. Yep. That is sampled to death. So that shows you the cultural impact this has had across the board.
Yep. So Kilgore is obsessed with Lance because they recognize him from the surfing magazine. So he's trying to get him to surf with the rest of his crew. But after he calls in the napalm, it sucks out the oxygen, and the wind starts blowing the other way because the heat and the fire sucked it out. And he's like, I need 20 minutes. I need 20 more minutes. And Lance is like, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't surf that. Sorry. Thank you, though, but I can't surf that. So Willard has the idea to steal Kilgore's surfboard. So they steal that. That's I've heard about this Zodiac game, dude. Like any game where you are the Zodiac killer, I think maybe the developer of that game might need to kill themselves. But that's just my take on it. So he steals Kilgore's surfboard, and then, like Gaz said, Kilgore sends the rest of the cavalry down all the tributaries with the recording of it's my board, Lance. You know how hard it is to find a board that you like. It's my board, and I want it back. That's one of the best parts of the movie. Anyway, the whole Kilgore sequence is actually, I can see why that was Gaz's favorite part. It's epic.
And also the score on this part as well, and the soundtrack, legendary, Flight of the Valkyries again, which is being used in everything. I even think, and I'm struggling to remember here, so if anyone knows, please help us out, y'all. I'm sure the chopper scene was used in a game. I might have been one of the Battlefield games, possibly. I know there was a part where there was like an Apocalypse Now DLC, and you could literally do that chopper run, and it was pretty awesome. And now I forget which game it was. So yeah.
So they come in, they blow up that point because Charlie controls that point, and the whole thing was Kilgore wanted to go there because Mike from San Diego told him it had good surf. So Kilgore plays Flight of the Valkyries on the speakers of the choppers so they could blast it out before they attack. But we didn't mention the rest of the score, which when this movie starts with a great helicopter bombing montage. This is the end by the Doors. Mostly the Doors movie, but the sound in Apocalypse Now is genius, level mixing, and the score is absolutely epic too. So the two actually Oscars that it did win were cinematography. I'll pull that guy's name. It's an Italian gentleman. A bit embarrassing not knowing it. And then it also won sound, I believe. So absolutely fire. But I think after they steal the board, is that when they encounter Chef and Willard encounter the tiger? Because I can't remember if that's
Yeah, I think it is. It's when the boat pulls up and one of them gets out and goes into the jungle, and then the tiger comes for them. Yeah. So they go out there. Hear that recording? Yeah.
Yeah, they go out there to get Chef goes to get mangoes to make a sauce, and Willard's with him. They're just like talking. He's telling him a story, and Willard hears it and he thinks it's the enemy, but they actually end up getting rushed by a tiger. Nothing happens. They run back to the boat, but they say never get Chef completely, like, his anxiety is starting to break, so he completely loses it, and they say to never get off the boat. Just catching up with the chat, folks.
Yeah, to send a quick
go ahead.
I was just gonna, while you were doing, I was just say a quick shout out to everybody. Thanks for coming through, y'all. And yeah, we might we're doing our best here to go through it play by play, so we might be a little bit out of there. So props to Joe.
Yeah, we're just gonna be doing our thing
and point there as well.
Checking in with you guys here and there before the here and there while we go through the plot elements. So I think just going through some stuff. Ride of the Valkyries. I think the next place that they come to is the outpost with the bunnies. Yeah. So there's this. Now this one is not in. I'm trying to remember. I think it is in Redux, but it's not in maybe the original. It's an interesting scene visually. Like, I like how they go resupply at the outpost and stuff when he first talks to the dude, and he's asking him for the oil. The dude's like, kind of Willard and that one guy get into the scuffle. Ultimately, they have this dance where the three Playboy bunnies come out of the helicopter for the troops, and the troops start rushing the stage, and the chopper flies away with the bunnies. I like the way the lights are in the background, how it's on that kind of floating watered stage, like they have it for that just one event. Then you see them breaking it all down the next stage, cleaning it up. Like, it's a big waste of money. I think that's essentially what the point is of that scene. I also don't think this is one of the scenes that's not in every version because it's not very crucial to the mission of going up the river in the boat. Yeah. So was it just like filler for you, or what did you think?
Yeah, it really was. It was one of those that I feel you could pretty much skip. Joyce just said the event is in the original, but the crash scene with the bunnies isn't. I haven't seen this before. I watched the final cut. I hadn't seen it for so long.
Joey knows his stuff.
Stone's had a tune in it as well, according to Red. So that's interesting. Dope stuff.
If we're looking for the no, it was like Vittorio. I'm sure I could find it. Under the cast and crew. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's good. It's good for a few watches. It's not quite as impactful as Act 3 or most of the other scenes, and also not that integral to the overall plot. I think basically the overlying thing here is what's his name? Not Kilgore, the other, the boat captain dude, Phil. I think it's Philip CPD. Keeps asking Willard, how far are we going? Because he basically knows where the Vietnam border is, so he basically knows if Willard's having him keep going, that they're gonna go past the border. It's essentially
in Cambodia.
Yeah, it makes it an illegal black op at that point. So, all casting crew. Does this dude want an Oscar? I mean, I maybe I'm spacing, Gaz, but I think after that, ultimately, it's the French plantation scene, like you were saying, and that is obviously not in most of the versions of the film, because that has literally nothing to do with the plot of Apocalypse Now. I was actually going to look up more information on what the meaning of that scene is, because I somewhat understand it. It's obviously some sort of colonization theme, but it slows the plot down to a lot.
Yeah, it does. It wasn't the most exciting watch, this part. I mean, it refers back to when the French were in Vietnam, which was known as Indochina then, when it was a French colony, and how the Vietnamese defeated the French. Refers to them taking the cannons up into the mountains on the high ground as well, which the French thought, all right, they won't be able to do that. Then there's a kind of like a social commentary on American policy at the time, I guess, about the similar parallels between the French and current forces in Vietnam, how to win it. Yeah. It is very dragged out. It does slow the film down. I'll come to this when we get to the review. It's already a very long watch, the final cut, which is kind of why I didn't really feel this. Was why I'm going to have two ratings on my review, professional and then personal.
Yeah, it's 3 hours long, as we said.
Yeah, I was happy to get past this part, to be honest. It really was. It's just like...
I was too. Like, honestly, the first few times I've seen that scene, I would always look for the deeper meaning and deconstruct the dialogue and stuff. But in this last watch, even I was like, okay, I'm probably a guy who's seen Apocalypse Now 30 times, and this scene is feeling like I've seen it 30 times. You know what I mean? She's a good actress. I think, a good portion of it was getting a naked woman into Apocalypse Now, which I don't know why they made such an effort to do that with the love scene with Willard and her. They were smoking opium together. I guess that's some sort of nod to the French opium trade, the opium wars, as Gaz was saying, to French, colonization. So that's essentially what it is. It's an opium plantation. These people wouldn't leave. Vittorio Storano was the cinematographer. These French people didn't want to leave their plantation despite it being in a combat zone. So that's pretty much what you get there with that scene. And there's just a couple small transition scenes, I would say, further up the river to closer to the border or where Kurtz
there's the arrow attack is next.
Yeah, that's coming up. I believe it was after this, the Da Nang Bridge, that last bridge that they go through, which is they make it kind of like post-apocalyptic, like it's kind of like a never-ending combat zone type of deal. There's no Willard goes in looking for the CEO. It's basically a nighttime scene. Actually, I could see why dude won the Oscar for cinematography in this scene alone, guys. All the down ships in the water, the planes and the boats, and the bridge is all blown up. This is more of a psychedelic scene. This is where Lance takes his LSD sheet. He still has the puppy with him, so we did miss one thing. Willard gets his mail, which is the dossiers from more dossiers from High Command. Very, very dark scene at the Da Nang Bridge, and then those dudes with the heavy gun that Willard goes and camps behind, guys, they're just like mowing people down in the dark, and that one dude is just launching a nade launcher off like that. Like they nailed the insanity of the war in that scene, you know. And then you just kind of have Lance just walking around spaced out of his head on acid. So it's kind of just like a psychedelic trip, you know, nighttime scene. Excellent cinematography in that scene. I summarize it a lot. The one thing that did happen before that is on the way up there, Captain has them board a boat of just like some like regular Vietnamese, like whatever, fishermen, traders. It obviously goes wrong. They get killed, and then Willard tells them no more stops. You know, obviously, like the captain's trying to do like regulation army stuff, and it's just not working for this Black Op mission. So that kind of came across as a conflict, between them. Yeah, that's probably the LSD line there. So, as Gaz said, yeah, they have the arrows. Lance is still feeling the effect of the acid. He opens a smoke bomb, which draws their attention, and that's what launches the arrow attack. And the gunner gets killed, right? The young dude.
Yeah.
That's a tough death scene. He's like listening to a tape from his mom. That got to him. So they bury him with the tape recorder. That's, I mean, we glossed over that, but it's like I think that's extremely impactful. You know, like basically this is all happening to this boat crew of dudes who would probably just be going around doing normal patrols, normal normal missions if it wasn't for being stuck with Willard. So it's, you know what I mean. He kind of gets most of those guys killed fucking from them.
Yeah, I think that's what, isn't it? Like, I think that's what later lead. No, it'll be before. It'll be before this scene. Yeah, of course it is. I think where Willard kind of says, "Right, we're going to Cambodia." Kind of gives him, for that reason, it's likely, they may not return. Yeah, you're right. As Gaz said, Captain's been asking Willard like every so often, like, "Yo, how far we going? How far we going?" And at this point, you know, like he's letting him know, like, because it's such a high level Black Op that, you know what I mean, it's pretty much to the end. You know what I mean, as Gaz was saying. So there's that one. I mean, I'm trying to think. So he goes down. Ultimately, they get there when they arrive to the temple. This is like pretty much getting to Act 3, depending on what version you're watching. There's so they ultimately get there. They get there with actually no. Captain gets hit on the way there too, guys. Right before they get in. So that's pretty much right when they pull up to the temple. Dennis Hopper cameo. So they get there with Willard, Lance, and Chef. So of the three original dudes, just them in the PBR, and then that's when they meet Dennis Hopper. A civilian. I looked at the IMDb, guys. His character name is photojournalist. I noticed that as well. That was it. It's just random, whatever. It's really like, we'll think of a name later, and maybe they never got around to that.
I love when movies do that because, you know, I would say he's one of the, of course, ensemble cast, as we said. I would say he's one of the, more notable cameos that people know from this movie. And, of course, he's basically just in these last scenes as just kind of a side character. He's kind of the spokesperson, mouthpiece of Kurtz, because Kurtz doesn't really talk or communicate. He does end up having some dialogue with Willard, but he doesn't really talk to anyone but Willard. You know what I mean? It's an interesting ending to a film.
An alternative one for sure.
But yeah, they pretty much understand that things are not going good at the Kurtz camp. They see that there's some of Kurtz's Green Berets that have their face painted, and they're like the higher level lieutenants, and then they have like all those Cambodian locals. It's kind of like a mishmash of all local populations with kind of the military guys kind of running it all under Kurtz, and then Hopper, I don't know how to describe him. He's like this war journalist, says he's a civilian. So yeah, he says, hit him with the siren. That's what clears him out. And yeah, it's really difficult to like deconstruct this third act. It's really convoluted pacing. You can kind of follow what's going on with Willard and how that goes. But as for the rest of it, there's really not that much consistency, which is kind of the film making its overall point that the war unravels as it goes. It becomes more and more unfocused the longer you stay there.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Sheen's commentary again, like throughout the film when he's sending, I think it's a letter back to his wife and his daughter, if I remember correctly. And there's that line where I think he says, they're going to make me a major for this, even
I'm not even in their army anymore. And
and even Kurtz wants me to kill him as well. I think if you took that out, that probably would leave a lot of people confused for the reasons you just stated, Ross. So I feel it kind of carries it in the third act.
Well, you jumped ahead a little bit. You do get it from what Kurtz said to him, because he said, if I were to die in combat, he's basically says how alike they are. Like, I'm like you, you're like me. If I were to die in combat, I would want my son to know everything that happens. But as Gaz said, that's also open to interpretation. So if Willard didn't tell you that Kurtz wanted you could miss it, even though like he's in so many words he said that he did. He essentially said he wanted to be an American, someone like Willard. Is essentially what he said. Joey has this right. There's a Max, so I think this is on the IMDb. Willard learns via dispatch that another MACV-SOG operative, Special Forces Captain Richard Colby, was sent on an earlier mission identical to Willard's and has since joined Kurtz. So one of the dudes that Willard sees is the MACV-SOG who joined Kurtz. And then I think at one point Captain was telling him they sent like another guy up there, I think even before that, who died. So it was basically, what's the word? Setting up, that Willard had all these predecessors that have been sent up there for Kurtz, and they really haven't been successful, either died or killed by that, native population or joined him like the last guy, which definitely an epic element. So eventually they kind of let them chill in the boat, and they kind of ignore them while Kurtz is supposedly doing these jungle missions. He's just killing Viet Cong or whatever local population, whoever. Doesn't even really tell you. You don't need to know. They bum rush Willard and they drag him through the water. They eventually tie him up and put him in those bamboo cages. So he's essentially taken as a prisoner. But that's when photojournalist is telling Willard that Kurtz likes him. You can kind of get the idea that Kurtz respects him because there's like the entire temple is filled with bodies and skulls. So you think that he would just be dead if it was going to go another way, obviously Kurtz would kill him like he killed everyone else. So he has to keep him alive for some purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything on that, or you want me to just keep trucking?
No, just keep trucking, man. I think you nailed it.
So Lance essentially joins them. They know that he's like non-threatening, so he's just doing whatever he's doing, kind of just vibing out. At some point while Willard's tied up in the rain, Kurtz comes to him in the rainstorm and throws Chef's head on his lap because Chef was in the boat. Willard told him to stay in the boat. Willard gave him the code for the airstrike, essentially said, if I don't come back by this time, like nuke this place, you know what I mean? Because it's just pure evil. So that was the plan there. Obviously, that doesn't go down. Nice. Appreciate it. Shout out to Fire Pixie. Shout out to all our members. Click join below.
Shout out. Really appreciate it. And shout out to everybody else as well. Thank you for coming through again. Enjoy again. Props to you for keeping us on point, man. We do have a habit sometimes of our memories evaporating. It's because we've got fingers in so many different areas. That's a disclaimer I'm going with.
That's the disclaimer. So yeah, that's as you said, it's mostly interaction between Willard and photojournalist throughout most of these scenes. Although Willard does get brought into Kurtz's chamber and kind of left there. Willard's released and warned not to attempt to escape or he'll be shot. Kurtz lectures him on the theories of war, praising the ruthlessness of the Viet Cong, asks him to tell his son the truth about his mutiny. Willard's commentary, first of all, Lance is in there with Willard, which I thought was sick. He's just kind of in the background. Willard's commentary is like, he says that Kurtz knew more about him than he knew about himself. He knew more about what he would do than what he was going to do. And he said, like, when I, based on the dossier and the mission, when I first saw him, he's like, I thought I'd be able to just pull the trigger right away and be on go time. But once he sees what Kurtz is actually doing and that, there's no point to the Vietnam War, anyway. So you really can't hold someone like Kurtz accountable for being like, I'm just not going to go with the mainstream military agenda. They clearly have no objective. So that's pretty much what Willard is seeing here. Kurtz asks, what did they tell you? He said told me you went crazy, that your methods have become unsound. Kurtz asked him, are my methods look unsound to you? Willard says, I don't see any method at all, sir.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best exchanges in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, and how Willard still calls him sir, like, because he's a colonel, even though clearly Kurtz is not enlisted. Kurtz hasn't been enlisted for years. So I just like the respect of the, you know what I mean? Like Willard is so locked in. Even the guy that his assignment is to assassinate is still a higher ranking officer than him. He still respects his title. You know what I mean? I think it's just an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, it's like showing you those contrasts, isn't it? Which is excellently done.
Yeah. And then not to mention the shooting in Kurtz's chamber, which is the shadows. Marlon Brando, my favorite actor of all time, guys. I really haven't even given my Brando diatribe. This is my number one Brando movie, this Kurtz character specifically. I love Godfather 1. I love Marlon Brando. I'm Sicilian. You guys know what we haven't even gotten to the Godfather on the channel yet, guys. So you guys know I'm a Godfather trilogy fanboy, right? Coppola, Brando, blah, blah. But I still think his best role of all time was as Kurtz. Now, when Brando met with Coppola, he was in shape, a lot smaller. When he showed up on set to Apocalypse Now, he was overweight. He no longer looked the part of a Special Forces veteran. He was ad-libbing and just completely improving scenes. He didn't know any of his lines. People were wearing cards on their head so Brando could read them. And Brando was just like going in his inner Kurtz and just like freestyling. You know what I mean? That's another major complication if you don't know that about. So when guys is probably wondering about some of these dialogue scenes, it was just like Brando reading poetry and be like, what would Kurtz say? And then say that.
It's interesting you say that because I was actually thinking it's why I generally find it quite a boring movie anyway. Not that I don't respect it. I'm going to get to all of that. And,
just the scene thing.
Yeah, because at times I felt like I was in college again where, God, we could do a whole show on this where they forced poetry on us and our screenwriting course, and I detested it, y'all. It was so painful. And I was getting flashbacks. So I thought, oh God, I'm in poetry class again.
Yeah. Apparently,
it's kind of positive and negative there.
I was reading some of that. Apparently, some of it is like T.S. Eliot language, and then photojournalist quotes some poetry as well. So there is some poetry influence on the film, if that's your thing. I was 10 years old when I learned that. Nice.
Oh, thank you.
We'll have to talk about how to do this. I mean, you could gift it to Epic Freestyle King. You could gift it or to Joey if he doesn't have his anymore. Whoever wants it, Slipknot would be good. I don't exactly know how you gift that, so let me Google that. That was as Gaz was saying, PXF Amateur Hour, where we offer things that we aren't 100% sure of what they do, but we're totally working on that. But yeah, anyway, so I think we're coming up to a major scene here, folks. My favorite scene of the movie: bring the doors back in. This is the end. Essentially, the native population it's a caribou, kind of slaughter ritual. So you've now seen Kurtz put his special forces makeup on. Now you're going to see Willard put his on. I mean, just the cinematography of Willard coming out of the river, Gaz, with his face. I mean, everyone's seen that montage 500 million times on YouTube and anywhere.
Yeah, it's been in games as well.
Yeah, everywhere. Even when we talked about Dune, when Brando was putting the water on his bald head in the shadows, that's how that's like what what's his name was doing. The villain in Dune was doing that, which was sick.
Yeah. Oh man.
You remember?
The Harkonnen.
I don't know why I'm spacing on the.
Yeah. No. It's all right. I think I'm.
Yeah.
It's the Harkonnen. Baron Harkonnen.
The Harkonnen Baron. That's who it was. Yes. I don't know. Pretty sad when Gaz I need to tap in Gaz and do a lifeline on Dune trivia when I've read 6 of the books and he didn't finish the first one. Welcome to PXF Paradigm Review Show. Like, sub, share. These are the moments why you turn in, because we create moments for you.
Oh, so on point.
Yeah. Back to Apocalypse Now. So there's a Watch Dogs called the Zodiac. Interesting. So I never played Watch Dogs actually. So the caribou slaughter ritual. Willard comes out of the river, like we say, with the war paint on. He's got the machete. He goes in there and he hacks Kurtz to pieces. That's what Kurtz was essentially asking him for, because Kurtz. Here's the thing, guys. Kurtz knows that this isn't going to go on forever. You know what I mean? He knows that they're just going to keep sending special forces like somebody like that on a top secret mission like that, and they'll probably just keep sending them because he can't operate up there what he's doing forever. So when Kurtz dies. This quote is from A Heart of Darkness. It's the horror. People have extrapolated different meanings from that. The horror of the situation, the horror of the entire war, the horror of the conflict. You could take your pick on what the social, geopolitical commentary on there. But anyway, a famous line, like Gaz said, that line is in tons of music tracks and sampled all over the place. He wants a death like a soldier, even though he being an officer and all that. He's still Willard's commentary narration is that he wants to go out like a soldier. Also, one thing I'd say kind of similar, Gaz, between like the narration in Blade Runner, the narration version versus the narration in this, kind of similar, even though there's way more narration in this than there is when Blade Runner was doing it. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's just movies like that. I think I always prefer them.
Yeah. There's so many other films where there are the scenes where they share parallel. For example, the end of the OG Conan. Arnold comes, he appears at the top of the temple. That when after Sheen comes out at the end and he's facing the locals, that reminded me of that scene as well. So so many areas I think where this film's had an impact for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I mean, again, when you go Conan, you're talking John Milius, so both Milius projects. The Apocalypse Now script versus Conan being almost 100% Milius. So Willard emerges with the some of Kurtz's writings, documents, dossiers, diaries, and the whole crowd bows to him. Very idolatry imagery, because that society was essentially worshiping Kurtz as a god. So with Kurtz dead, that chapter is totally over. It essentially ends with just an almost silent scene of Kurtz leaving with Lance, who is still alive, of all people, and they pull out in the boat. I don't think he does call the airstrike in, right, Gus? I don't think he calls it in.
No, I don't think he does either. Not that I know of, because I know as he's walking through the crowd and doesn't he?
They depart down the river away from Kurtz's outpost. So I guess that was only if Willard were to fail. Since he since he got him. So when's your next gig, Mosh?
I know he's been asking me Metal and Mosh stuff all the show, and I'm practically here. I'm like, I've got to
just for Mosh.
I've got to do. We'll have to do that in another show.
But yeah, so I love the kind of an abrupt ending to a 3-hour final cut. It basically blacks and goes to credits, which is probably not the ending you expect for Apocalypse Now. But like I said, several different versions of the film. I know some areas got too slow paced for Gaz, but I'm still ride or die fanboy for this film for life.
Yeah, this is the thing. I knew when this was. Look, we worked together for absolutely years, so we know each other so well, and we've had so many conversations about this film long before we moved over onto YouTube. And so I knew when it was coming to this was going to be one of those films, and it still is, where I feel everyone has got so many different opinions on it based on whatever version I've watched, what personal taste as well, which obviously is subjective with anything. And it's one of those movies where I still feel it can, in a good way, not get people at each other's throats, but divide people. Where some recognize it as a legendary film, I recognize it for the filmmaking aspect and everything that we'll get into in our closing comments. It's not one of my personal favorite movies. If I'll go on record now, my favorite Vietnam War movie is Platoon. Much prefer that. But there'll be people out there that don't, and there was a point to this, and it's evaporated with all the random questions you get.
A couple things. Well, when they're all bowing to him, the temptation for him to take Kurtz's place, so Willard
good point.
Succeeded Kurtz. You know what I mean? Another thing, as Gaz was saying, the whole is Apocalypse Now a war movie? Because I think really the only kind of Vietnam combat that it shows is that air cavalry attack. You don't really see much like jungle on jungle, like, infantry skirmishes like you see in a Platoon or Full Metal Jacket or any of those other movies. So, I mean, I would argue Apocalypse Now, much like they took Heart of Darkness out of 19th century colonization of the Congo, it's more of like a specific story that takes place during a Vietnam War backdrop, as opposed to like a war movie, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't really cover the war. It just covers this one small mission, kind of like how the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, how it was like that one Black Op mission, but just way less combat, because Willard really doesn't get into any combat skirmishes,
you've got it. That's just you've got it in one, man. That's my the issue that I have with it. Joey's just recommended a good one, though. We could check out the 9th configuration. Joey, have you seen, you probably will have you seen Casualties of War with Michael J. Fox? Because that was a good Vietnam War movie. And Ross, I think with Apocalypse Now, it's as much a social commentary on the politics, on the psychological horrors that the soldiers went through at that time, the protests as well back home. So such a, I feel, complicated movie all around. So
absolutely, I mean that's the whole thing. It's stories within stories. For instance, when they're get on the first beach and there's that like fake director having everybody run by, and Willard stops and looks at the camera and he's like, "Don't look at the camera." That's actually Francis Ford Coppola. So kind of a little nod there to like they're out there in a war zone, kind of shooting content. You know what I mean? It's like it's again a fake production within a fake production, right? So,
but you see, it's interesting because my dad, I know he really liked Apocalypse Now. That was one of his top movies as well. For the reasons that you've been saying, Ross. So it's always going to be one of those movies like the OG Star Wars that is always going to be up there because it's had such an impact. And Fire, as I just said. Well, me and Ross are going to have to get together and maybe schedule some of these other shows based on, UFC, music, some random kind of general shows, just so we don't get too far off.
Yeah, let me see what I can see on the memberships, Pixie, and I'll see if I can gift it to someone if I'm able to put what little brain power that me and guys have left to figure that out. What was I gonna say? Yeah, there's just a lot to unpack. Like there's that.
So
There's
much.
who would you say had the best performance in the film, guys? Because for me, the big thing for me is the Kurtz character, just Brando. As much as I love Willard, Willard's actor got changed right at the beginning. I don't think you could have did that with a Brando. I think if Brando backed out and you would have switched, I don't know. I just don't think it would have worked. So, in my opinion, Kurtz.
There's three for me. I'm Willard. I just feel Martin Sheen's performance is legendary because he carries a movie, because I do feel there's quite a lot of filler going around throughout the film. And Willard's led us back to his family, his own thoughts on the mission, what he's going through the whole Vietnam War. That's what puts him up there for me. Then Brando is Kurtz, definitely. Then Duvall is Kilgore, because his character is just so hilarious and memorable. Awesome. I mean, I just thought of this, Pixie, here's one for you. There's one of the scenes where he's like stood there, where he's got his cowboy hat on, he's got his hands at his waist, and he reminds me, I thought, man, it's just come to me as we've been talking about it. The dude in American Ninja 2, who's the commanding officer of the Marines, who they call Wild Bill, he's got like this mad cowboy hat on as well, and I thought that's got to be a nod to Apocalypse Now. I didn't come across it, but that's got to be just because the way that character is in that movie, there's just something so similar. So
the part Gaz is talking about is he gets out with his shirt on, and he has that yellow what do you call those things? I forget what that thing's called, but it's almost like a pocket square, but it's like a handkerchief. He has a yellow a yellow handkerchief around his neck. He gets out, he rips his shirt off, he rips that thing off, and it just blows in the air, and then he's just walking around with no shirt on.
It's so ridiculous, but it's so funny, man.
War zone. Kilgore is such a savage. I like photojournalist. For me, Kurtz.
Yeah, he's good.
Photojournalist, Kilgore, I like those ones. Even Lance, I thought was sick for like the pro surfer in a war zone. He did his job.
Even Lawrence Fishburne was good as well.
Yep.
He was pretty cool.
Yep. Everyone was good, bro. The ensemble cast, the Harrison Ford cameo, you know what I mean? Just some sick cameos. We're over an hour. I think we could get into ratings. I mean, this is probably the show I should fire Gaz on if he's 1 point lower than mine. It's got an 8 point
lower than you.
You're gonna be way more than 1 point, right? it's got an 8.4 on IMDb. 10 out of 10. Apocalypse Now is the greatest film of all time. Best sound, best cinematography, best writing. John Milius is my man. I'm a John Milius fan. Go ahead, guys. Leave your ratings in the chat below if you guys want.
Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, but this is true. This is how I wanted to approach it, a bit like how I did when we did Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm gonna upset you all. I'm not okay. I'll do it from professional first. Professional. I'm the professional. The filmmaking, the sets, the location, absolute mammoth task. For that, it's got to be a 9. That's not my personal opinion, which but that is a 9, just for that sheer skill. Yeah, personal opinion, I know I'm going to upset you all, but again, it's just personal taste. I'm at a 6 because I find it quite boring, to be honest. I prefer more Platoon, where there's more action going on.
For sure.
I feel there's a lot of filler, often too dragged out. I respect it, and I can see why it's a cultural legacy. As I said, it was one of my dad's top movies. But for me, I prefer the theatrical cut out of all of them as well. The final cut is.
I was just going to ask you that.
Too long, so I would rate the theatrical cut more. But for me, I much prefer, like as you were saying, Platoon, just because there's just much more going on. It's a bit more action driven.
I mean, that's a combat film. I mean, it's
exactly. This is just a bit
too different genres
for my taste, and a lot of the introspection, etc. I'm like, oh, man, but I know I can see what they were trying to convey and get across is the horror at the time. For example, the closing line from Night Waste is the horror. Well, I literally did feel in horror having to sat through it for 3 hours 20 minutes on the final cut. But there is. No one can say this isn't like OG Star Wars. I know lots of people who don't like OG Star Wars, but they're still respected for the cultural legacy, the impact it's had. You've got to recognize that with it. So on the professional 9, personal, I'm at a 6 just because I don't find it that exciting, but I can obviously recognize the acting, filming, cinematography, writing, everything like that. You've got to.
Let me ask you this. If you cut out the plantation and the bunnies and you watch like a more, like condensed, like original cut, does that speed up the pace for you?
Definitely. My rating would be so much higher. Yeah, definitely. That French platoon scene, I feel really ruined it.
I don't. I'm not sure what it showed. It kind of was some character building for Willard. But I still want to deconstruct that scene more and read some articles and be like, because it doesn't really affect the plot of the Willard mission for Kurtz really in any way, despite giving you a little bit of background of Willard. But good.
I was going to say there's one thing it shows. They say this is just how it can go from each side of the fence to the other here. With it being like an old school movie, it shows you the standard in acting then as well, compared to too much filler that we have now, where it's just cheesy dialogue, just all effects, not much going on. Whether you like this movie or not, you've got to respect the acting ability and the way they try and put that emotion and convey both the terrors and emotional turmoil that everybody is going through. Even Robert Duvall with his crazy outlandish character there, but it worked because I've been here talking about it and saying that's my most memorable scene and what I enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, it was just different personalities. It's a character piece, It's very, each kind of guy brings something completely different,
You mentioned Harvey Keitel, though, and now that's got me thinking, man, now, like Pixie said, I can't imagine anyone else in that role of Willard, but because when I think of Harvey Keitel, I always think like Bad Lieutenants, for
going off the rails.
Reasons. So now I'm thinking, like, would he be like that?
Yeah. Just Willard just going completely nuts, you know what I mean? Like Willard turns in. That's the version where Willard turns into Kurtz, you know what I mean? The Keitel version. Oh man, Tropic Thunder is so good. We get it, bro. We get it. I think the Kurtz performance is one of the greatest performances of all time. I love John Milius's writing. I think I want to say he was involved in writing some Scarface as well, or it was one of those two, Brian De Palma. And man, the stuff he writes is always like Conan, Apocalypse Now. Of course, I think Coppola is the gold standard. So that's the final cut. Again, you know what I'm saying, guys? This is what you get with the ultra disc.
Nice.
You get that, the six disc cut with the Blu-rays and not.
Could you show us the inside as well, please, bro?
Yeah. One thing I was going to say, guys, is
nice.
What might give you a new appreciation if you care to hear some of that pre-production stuff I was talking about.
Yeah.
Watch that documentary about how those guys, the Filipino helicopter pilots, were coming in and out of the war zone and then shooting with Coppola. You'll learn some crazy stuff that, like, even I didn't even know that. How many times I've seen this film. So like it might just give you of what a struggle. They thought this was going to be a 5 or 6 month production. It ended up going over a year. The set getting destroyed, just one thing after another. Sheen has a breakdown on set that results in a heart attack. So he eventually is gone from set from some point. It was just like Heart of Darkness, one thing after another, just boom, boom, boom. And then, at the studio and all the articles are like, oh, Coppola's never going to get this movie done. What was I going to say? As for UFC, Fire Pixie, I don't know. I mean, what'd you think of the card? I thought DDP got a nice finish on Israel Adesanya. I was looking for Drickus to get that win. Kai Kara France had a nice fight. I mean, I thought those were the two highlights of the card.
Yeah. Do you feel this, Pixie? We were talking about this off myself and Ross. If Izzy gets that ground game now, I think he'll be unstoppable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, depending on how many more times he fights, which might not be that more. He's 35, is he? So,
well, it'd be interesting to see. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But that'll do it for Apocalypse Now, guys. Marlon Brando, the greatest actor of all time. Francis Ford Coppola, the greatest writer of all time. Of course, dude got the Oscar for cinematography. I could certainly see where that came from. I guess we could take a peek at what else we have on. At least my list is whittling down of my PXF classics, guys, because we've already done several of mine. I don't. Where's my pen? We did Point Break. We did The Crow OG. We got The Thing at some point. We have They Live. We did Apocalypse Now. I have Red Sun on there that I know Gaz has some. Equilibrium, Fury Road. Mac has some. I mean, I suppose Army of Darkness is probably on all three of our backlogs. So PXF classics. So we got some stuff. The Big Fight. Do I like Brando and The Island of Dr. Moreau? Well, Slipknot, funny you should ask this. I like Brando and everything, but I'm not sure I've ever seen a movie he did bad in. The score wasn't my favorite one, but everything beyond that, dude, is a beast. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you coming through. Appreciate you coming through, Joey. We appreciate you all coming through. Before we do wrap up, Ross, do you want to give a shout out on what's coming up next on the channel, latest happenings with the Zodiac as well, and things that we're going to be covering?
Mm-hmm. We're going to do, Moreau's crazy. We're going to do The Crow 2020 Bore sometime. It's the actual remake. We're screening it next weekend. Gas keeps forgetting, but I keep reminding him every show. So don't worry. In the meantime, go watch our Crow OG review and our reaction to the Crow trailer because it doesn't really look that crazy. Next week, Terminator, it's called Year Zero, comes out on Netflix. That drops on Netflix. Gaz and I want to review that because we're big Terminator guys over here. That horrible Crow 2024 is going to get roasted, toasted, and burnt to a crisp.
I was thinking, just to cut in, man, do you think we could maybe do a comparison with the Crow Salvation? Maybe do that as well, just if the Crow 2024 is going to be as bad as we're expecting.
We might have to because we might be looking for any subject other than the Crow 2024. So I mean, we might be talking about the Crow 2 City of Angels and freaking Salvation with Everett Furlong. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but it's going to get bad. So I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what to say about that. Other than that, probably backlog stuff, Gassy, because we don't have too much book. There's that Batista movie. There is that one Kung Fu movie that I sent you guys the trailer of, Gaz, the one that looked okay. I pulled it here, and it wasn't in one single theater anywhere near me, so I'm probably going to have to find another way of watching that, even if I got to rent it or whatever.
Yeah, that sucks. I did catch The Kill, y'all, which was... I suppose it was going to be another big fire Indian action movie, but it's not good. I said to Ross, if you want us to do it, we will. But I said to Ross, in my opinion, that's one we can pass. The guys didn't look like they had legit skills. Nowhere near Monkey Man, which we really enjoyed. So
Monkey Man was pretty fire. I mean, there's Rick and Morty, the anime. It looks like it has a 3 with 10 episodes. If Gaz catches up, well, there's Horizon. Me and Gaz could watch Horizon. If Gaz catches up on The Boys, we could do that new season, and then. Other than that, I mean, we can start digging into you guys'. We want to get the West. We'll probably do Dirty Harry for the Zodiac heads. We'll probably get the Westerns going. We'll probably, Dirty Harry is kind of a PXF classic, so to speak. What the hell was that movie called? I sent you guys the trailer. There's the crappy Crow.
The enthusiasm for the Crow 2024.
1992 looks better than the Crow 2024. At least that has Ray Liotta in it. Beetlejuice in September. That'll be coming up. Let me see if I can find what the hell that Kung Fu movie was called. Because Horizon, me and Gaz might have to rent, although I think it's like a $20 rent on YouTube right now. So sorry, YouTube, that's not happening. Me and Gaz have other ways to handle that.
Apparently, y'all, this is why Ross is looking
this up. Joker 2 in October. Go ahead, Gazi.
Apparently, Aliens Romulus, believe it or not, it's actually meant to be pretty good. What people are saying is it's the best one after the first 2 movies. I'm a bit hesitant because whenever something gets good reviews on all the major sites, that usually says to me that it's not good because I'm never on the same page as any of those outlets. So I'm going to peep it next weekend with the Crows. So I'll let Ross know what it's like. And if I feel it's something that we could cover and you want us to cover it, then we will. Apparently they're saying it's very close to Aliens, which isn't a bad thing because I think Aliens is an awesome movie.
There's Wackiator Poo. I'm not sure we're doing that one, guys, to be honest with you, unless you guys want us to roast it. We're fans over here, so I don't like wading too far into the poo and pee makes. You know what I mean? I can't. They took this off here. I can't even find this.
There's one we could look at, isn't there? There's the Anthony Hopkins is in it. Oh, what's it called? Is that Roman Gladiator series that's on Amazon Prime?
I like Hopkins.
I think is it. We'll have to look this up. But you may know there's apparently Roman. Let me get this for you. Roman Gladiator series, not Spartacus, which was epic. Those About to Die. That's it. Yeah, follows Emperor Vespasian, Anthony Hopkins, as he goes about building the iconic Colosseum. So possibly, yeah, we could look at that. That could be one. If you want us to do that, y'all.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back to the thread and find that trailer I sent you guys because
I know which one you're on about. I forget the name, but it's not. There's another one which is dropped called Twilight of the Warriors, and I know it's not that.
Ooh, maybe it was that. Maybe it was that.
It wasn't that, man. I'm sure it wasn't. Because I remember
you watched Life After Fighting.
Yeah, we just watched that. That's not bad, y'all, actually.
Killer's Games, the Batista. Yeah, we're gonna have to fight it off air, guys. But anyway, there's some new kung fu movie out that looks decent. We're winding down anyway, guys. Any final questions for me? Me and Gaz will have to do a deep dive to go find this film.
There goes our Sunday night.
Like share. Click the join button for more content like this. Me and Gaz searching through Google trying to find the latest kung fu movie of a trailer I already sent Gaz and Mac, if you can believe that.
Yeah, that memory's been saucy. But yeah, maybe people Life After Fighting as well. I'll say this. I might do something for it on Mosh Shinobi. The first hour it kind of builds up to the last act, really, but the last act in Life After Fighting is insane, especially the Dojo Storm, what happens. I sent Ross some clips from it during the week, and it's just the dude here, I think he's called Brent Foster. For those that watched The Last Ship years ago, he was the Aussie guy in The Last Ship, which was pretty decent military series based on a novel, which was good for the first 2 seasons, and then it sadly went off a bit. So anyway, that's just one for you.
I'm going to be dropping a couple new shorts. I'm working with American Spy Fox behind the scenes on Cobain stuff he sent me. So check out the interview with American Spy Fox, and then my last one with Druser on the Zodiac Files interviews, volume 13 or whatever volume that was. I also was on a panel with French Wrecking Crew, my boy Jerome from Belgium. Druser and Ned from BBOR were on there with me. And we're doing another one. What the hell's today? Monday? Today's Sunday. We're doing another one tomorrow, I believe. We're talking Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa. That's it for me. Click below, Patreon, like, sub, share, and join the memberships. We'll try to figure out what happened with that gift membership, Fire Pixie. We'll try to help you out with it.
Yes. Red Cloud Putrid. Yeah, Putrid Pal, a dope. Yeah, I like Putrid Pal as well.
Red Cloud, take it over to Gaz's channel, dude. You guys are out of line. You can join the Patreon there. Shout out to everybody who came through. Red Cloud, Fire Pixie, Joey, Slipknot. Appreciate all you guys. Apocalypse Now, 10 out of 10. Go buy that 4K disc. Rent it everywhere. I don't. That's because I have so many hard copies, guys. I don't even know where that's streaming. I assume it's on Amazon.
I think it is, but you can get the hard copy from there as well. Yeah,
nowadays you tell someone to buy a 4K disc and they look at you like it's a 12-inch vinyl record. You know what I mean? It's on Amazon, and apparently it's on Plex, which I don't know what that is. We're out. PXF backlog coming back soon. The Crow 2024 roast very soon, and then followed by the Terminator Year Zero Season 1 review. Hopefully that one won't be. It's all good, Pixie. We'll figure it out. Peace out, guys. Thanks for coming through. Have a good night. Enjoy. Like, sub, share, and go rewatch Apocalypse Now for the anniversary. PXS.